Hello, everyone. Welcome to Maker's Bar, where we are creating 1 million leaders. I'm your host, Troy Goldenberg. Today, I'm here with leader, founder, and CEO of Iluria, Hagay Levy. Hagay, thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So the way I always start these interviews is tell us about your journey. Where did your journey begin? If you can start that from childhood, from school, what is your professional journey?
So I'll divide it into the professional, like the formal journey, and then the personal background, because I actually they're coming together when it comes to Iluria. So looking at my business background, I started off my career in the capital markets. I majored in finance, and then I did several years of investment banking. I spent like 20 plus years in the high tech industry in Israel, in multiple C-level positions. I did product, BD, I was CFO for many years in many verticals, fintech, regtech, regulation technologies, homeland security, communication. So I've been around, but here comes also my personal background. I have severe ADHD myself, but I just turned 55, so in my generation, who knew? I'd like to scratch my way through everything. But now I'm a father. Together with my wife, we have 4 kids. As of this morning, all 4 of them are diagnosed with ADHD, with and without hyperactivity. And we learn that, first of all, we learn that we are, in a sense, gatekeeper as parents. Again, maybe we are not professional stakeholders, but we are gatekeepers to maybe not the majority of the process, but to some pretty important processes which are needs to be managed. And together with that, we don't really have any data once the patient actually is out of the clinic, and we're trying to analyze the overall situation and the impact of the medication. So again, looking at Iluria, it's somewhat of a combination of my professional background, business in a sense, startups in most of the years, and my both personal attribute and my position as a father.
I love how that came together. That is incredible. So when did the journey at Iluria begin?
So before establishing Iluria, we did a lot of non-formal measurements, because we just wanted to analyze what is the impact of the pharma, of the medications on our kids. So we did like a lot of non-formal measurements, but pretty insightful and very helpful. And actually, it super assisted in some of the processes in which we were certain the medications were working and they weren't working, and vice versa. So we started like the non-formal measurements, I think like 6 years ago, roughly speaking. But after that, we kept on measuring, because we understood that there is a problem, which the magnitude of the problem is slightly higher than just our case. And we started like the formal journey of Iluria. We established the company like 5 years ago, but we started like the formal journey 2.5 years ago, when we raised the initial funding, and we completed several clinical trials, and now we're concluding the initial version of the product. So it's like a long journey, because again, it started off from our personal needs. So and then there were some kids of friends and family that asked questions, and so it actually like evolved throughout the years.
Yeah. So what are some of the differentiators? So there's a lot of companies that are wanting to work with ADD, ADHD symptoms. What kind of inspired you? Like, oh, we could do this differently. What are those differentiators that you are working on and have with Iluria?
So again, I can speak about the personal level and about the generic, but from the personal level, it's the inability to analyze the impact of the pharma, and I can just portray it from like 2 angles, which are different, actually quite the opposite ones, but still it basically covers like the overall, I would say, blurriness of the ecosystem, and the trial and error and the frustration that comes out of that. So again, maybe like a small personal story from my young son. He was diagnosed at a very young age. He started off the first grade with a specific medication. which wasn't working as we knew when we actually started measuring, but the teacher was certain that the medication was working. It was very elusive. It still lowered the hyperactivity, but the overall impact was not there. And we missed it. And again, it was a nightmare. She wanted to move into special education, a lot of back and forth and a lot of frustration. And we sensed something was off. And then we did like the first measurement that we've ever done. And we sent it to a very close friend of ours. Back then, he was at the NIH, one of the world's leading computational biology experts. And he told us, look, I'm not a physician. I don't even know what the gold standard is. But if you claim that an effective treatment should change the overall physiological, I would say, attributes, again, combination of machine learning, movement, heart rate, and it's the same child. I mean, the impact of the medication on the physiology is not there. So again, this is like one case. I can tell you like another case for my older son, like the generic, I'm out of the treatment. He had side effects, and then he reduced the dosages. And then he said, okay, I don't have any side effects, but the medication is doing nothing for me. I'm out. So we just measured him and we showed him, okay, maybe the overall impact is not as strong as the full dosage, but there is an impact over there. And it actually assisted him. He sustained the treatment throughout his high school year. So again, there are many like specific showcases, which, I mean, circling back to maybe to the second case, the major problem is the adherence, which is very, very low because we don't have any data. But again, it's not only the adherence. I mean, as I told you in my young son, it was some sort of a false negative analysis. So again, it's not like one generic showcase that is relevant for everyone. I think the generic element is the inability to analyze, and then either you will make mistakes, maybe you will get it right. I mean, but in many cases, either you will make mistakes or you will simply drop out of the treatment because if I don't have any data and I do have side effects, why should I tolerate that?
That makes sense. That makes sense. And you started doing this data gathering 6 years ago, you said. So what have you seen change? I mean, that's say 6 to even 10 years ago in the industry versus now. Is this something that you alone, that Iluria alone is doing, or have you seen a growth of competition, or a growth in the industry in general? How does this look different now than it did a decade ago?
So we do see a definite change. First of all, from the technological side, I mean, again, this industry is evolving now. These days, each and every Apple Watch or Fitbit is like a small hospital that can retrieve many, many markers. So technologically, we do see a dramatic change. But more importantly, we do see also a change, actually from several stakeholders. I mean, we do start to see some competitions. I mean, luckily for us, our patent was approved actually exactly a year ago, tomorrow.
Congratulations.
And it's also approved in other territories. So we're in a pretty good positioning, but we're trying to see that like other players from anxiety and other industries are trying to shake the tree. But we also see a change from other stakeholders, not necessarily providers, because if I'll talk about like the average discussion with physicians, they are in a matter of seconds because again they don't have any data and they are losing patients because of that. But we do see actually in the last half a year we noticed because they approached us, but we noticed actually a dramatic change from the pharma ecosystem. I mean, basically, again, there are several stakeholders. All of us are in the same boat in the sense of suffering from the mess and from the very, very low adherence. I mean, parents, payers, providers, pharma, special education, I mean, all of us are suffering. But I mean, it's obvious that the pharma might be the big elephant in the room. Having said that, it's very hard to work with pharma. Again, huge companies, very slow processes. But in the last half a year, actually 3 companies approached us proactively. And actually, we started some, I would say, pretty advanced discussions with one of them. So we do see a change in the sense of the willingness to adopt beyond the pill digital therapeutic or tools that will enhance the overall ecosystem and will assist us as parents to sustain the treatment, because again, now we have data, so we can analyze that the medication is doing something and that this something is not severe, looking at the cardio and some other elements. So yeah, we do see, I'm saying it cautiously, but quite of a dramatic change when it comes to the pharma ecosystem.
That's awesome. That's huge. I know, I mean, especially that industry, pharma industry in particular, but a lot of large industries that have, big, more or less monopoly-sized players, the process is very slow and change is even slower. So it's very cool to be able to have the inside look of, hey, even over the last 6 years, we have seen change. I'm sure there's a ton of challenges just working with pharma. However, in your company, is that the biggest challenge? What are some significant challenges that you're facing now today?
Other than funding, which is obvious, even though we are in a pretty solid position, I think the product market fit is always the main challenge when it comes to startups in plural. We've done the best we could trying to cement that, even though again the product market fit is not generic, it's not identical. The value proposition for providers will be different than the value proposition for pharma or pharmacies or special education. But I think again it's a pretty, like I would say, a generic phrase, but still I will stand behind it. Cementing the product market fit, because it's a never-ending process. Even once you are in the market, it's a never-ending process. And again, obviously, one step beyond the product market fit, it's actually the actual commercialization, because again, at this stage, we're kind of a niche solution, so we need to see whether there will be motivation for, let's say, providers, even though we will be able to utilize codes, whether they will have motivation to adopt like some sort of a drill down specific solution which is doing something very, very specific. I disappeared. Sorry, I disappeared for a second.
Oh, we're back. Okay.
Yeah, maybe there was a glitch in the connectivity. The regulatory processes which we need to complete, but again, these are more of I would say maybe not technical, but more of like a generic elements. The product market fit is the main element, and the second element is again looking at the long run. Again, I mentioned the farm players, and it's obvious what is the value proposition for the farmer players, but then again, understanding how they can actually assist us in commercializing that, because you're talking about huge entities, it's also kind of a challenge. But again, it's a good problem. It's not as if we need to see whether our solution ticks someone. It does.
No, that's great. That's great. So I want to transition a little bit into you personally. I would love to hear about your journey into becoming the founder and CEO. Obviously, we're creating leaders here at Makerspar. So I would love to hear about how your leadership style has formed, how it has changed. Like, what kind of made you take that jump into being a CEO and a founder? And what have you discovered about yourself as a leader?
So, first of all, with respect to the motivation, again, it's a pure personal story. Again, it's a combination. It's a pure personal story, and it's a pure personal story because we have to solve a problem for our kids, starting off with our youngest son, which is the mold in which you create ADHD kids, in a sense. So obviously, the personal element was trivial, but with respect to the, I would say more of again, everything is personal, but in the sense of the impact of what we're doing. Again, I spent, as I mentioned, several years in actually many years in many other industries, communication, and I think that the impact or the potential impact of what we try to do, actually did from the initial measurement, but again, looking at production level, is of huge importance for me personally. Again, I'm not against working with banks or Homeland Security clients. But again, the impact of what we're doing and the impact on the specific patients. I mean, even the clinical trials and the pilots that we're doing. Again, when we're actually providing like analysis for a specific child, and then maybe you see something is wrong, and maybe the physician and the patients, and the parents miss that. It's huge. And again, and even if everything is okay, it's still very, very important because again, the parents are at the dark, and as such, the adherence, as I mentioned, is way below 50% in the initial, I would say, 6 months. So just providing them this super important data, again, far on their kids, that was a huge motivator for me personally. With respect to what changed, again, I'm quite old. Just turned 55, so I'm not certain that a lot of has changed in, like, I'd say, the 5 years that I've been dealing with Iluria. But to be honest, I don't think that my management style or my personal connections or has changed dramatically. Obviously, I calibrated my attributes, and obviously we cemented what we tried to do and tried to cement the product market fit and how to present the company and which barriers to avoid and which barriers to actually address. But I don't think there is like a huge dramatic change on my personality because I'm not a spring chicken anymore, unfortunately.
My dad would say you're still a spring chicken. He just turned 65, so he was talking about how young he was in his 50s. Actually, not just recently. We're talking about it. But I would love to hear more about the value. So obviously, I really loved how you were saying the ability to have a direct impact on the family's life, a child's life. Like that was a big motivator, which is just awesome to hear. And there's again nothing against working in fintech, work with banks, or anything like that, but the direct impact is a big thing. So what are some other key values that your company keeps, and how do you ensure that those are upheld in the company?
So first of all, we're not in production yet. We are launching in a month's time, like the initial non-medical version of the solution, which we will start piloting with special education schools. But if I will address like the long run, which is medical device, again, we will initially target the UK market because the regulatory barrier is much lower. But then again, UK, CE, FDA, all of the compliance will be governed by the regulations. So obviously, we have a process to complete. But with respect to, again, what we are trying to achieve, so obviously I mentioned the impact on the parents, which is crucial. Together with that, in the pilots that we're currently conducting, which are like live data from schools, obviously we are complying with the constraints, the security and the fact that everything should be like anonymized and everything. But again, it's not only the regulatory constraints, it's because it's important for us. I mean, both in production and now in the trials, just making sure that only the parent can initially see the data, and if the parent agrees, the physician can see the data as well. It's crucial for us. So I think this is like the main element that we're trying to fulfill, keeping it personal, keeping it secured, and first of all address actually the parents and the patient themselves, and afterwards use the data for our needs and show the physicians and so on.
So keeping things personal and security sound like some of the values there. So that would definitely be some metrics of success. I'm curious to know, are there any other, not necessarily KPIs, they could be KPIs, but any other metrics of success that when you view your business, you're able to say this was successful or this wasn't? Anything else in there?
Yeah. So again, if you look at the like overall umbrella value proposition, you will see like several ingredients: the increased level of care, saving unnecessary processes, and so on and so forth. As I mentioned, and again, I'm quoting both physicians and pharma players and parents. The big elephant in the room is the very, very low adherence to treatment, because physicians are having, in some cases, difficulty in shortening the time to the effective treatment while minimizing side effects. We don't have any data. And as such, in most of the cases, statistically, the easiest decision is simply to drop out of the treatment and to try and, I don't know, lower the cognitive dissonance in some other ways, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that this is the main element that we're trying to address, and this is also an element which is not only of maybe the main important for us. We're actually also quantifying it in the pilots that we're conducting. We're using like statistical methods, prems. I don't know, again, it's like technicalities of clinical trials, but we're actually quantifying, aside from the science, and showing yet again that we can analyze markers using machine learning and mimic the like DSM-5 wise, looking at the gold standard, the impact of the medications. We're also quantifying the impact on the self-esteem, in a sense, of the parent pre-Iluria, when you are in, unless you are an expert or physician or I don't know what, but in most cases where you are in the dark. And then post-Iluria, when Iluria is showing you, okay, we do see a statistical impact, and we do see that the impact is not severe, looking at the cardio, which is maybe it rose a little bit, but again, nothing too dramatic. So this is the metric that it's not only the most important business-wise metric for us, we're also quantifying it in the pilots using like pretty well-known statistical methods for measures for that.
Oh, that's incredible. It's such a great idea. Obviously it spawned from your personal life, but still, I mean, a lot of people will run into this problem, and the ability to just see the problem and take your professional experience, combine that with your personal experience to go run with it, to have this kind of impact on parents is truly incredible. And in the long run, what do you see the very long run here? So we're talking a decade or two out. What do you see as the long-term vision for Iluria?
So I will, again, you have the ADHD element and the other elements. If you'll start from like the broader perspective, going beyond ADHD, and not only to comorbid conditions, but some other mental health standalone indications. First of all, adults with ADHD. Actually, we are starting our clinical trial with Tel Aviv University. Again, with adults, specifically with young adults, it's a different problem in a sense, because it's not low adherence, it's actually the other way around. It's misusing stimulants, which is also a problem. But again, it's a different problem. So obviously expanding to young adults is something that we started doing. And we also, I will assume that we will also address anxiety and depression. Actually, we have a patent on that as well. It's in the national phase, but again, with a very like old priority date. So looking at it like broadly, I would say that going beyond ADHD or beyond kids and adolescents with ADHD. But if I will circle back to kids and adolescents with ADHD, and actually I will simplify it, or maybe even downgrade the long-term vision. Just being connected and seeing what's going on. I mean, if you look like at the average, I mean, the typical journey of a parent with ADHD kid, you feel like the ecosystem, the school, the physicians are the providers trying to push you towards a decision of, okay, let's give medication. You're trying to read online, maybe it's an urban legend, and then maybe I will cave in and my kid will take pharma. And again, there are some pretty severe statistics to what happens to adults or young adults who are not under treatment, but still, because of the fact that they don't have any data, and I hear stories about long-term implications on cardio and liver, I will just drop out of the treatment. So I think the overall vision, if I will, again, downgrade it, okay, your kid was diagnosed, great, go home, but go home with this cute Holter device. Again, it might be Samsung, Apple, Fitbit. It will be agnostic, and we will measure you. and we will provide you with objective, both raw data analysis, looking at the safety, and DSM-5, meaning gold standard compliant analysis, looking at the efficacy or the impact of the medication. And we do believe that I do believe that it will be a revolution, because again, as I mentioned, the overall adherence is way below 50% in the initial half a year, because we don't have any data. Typically, parents will not survive the initial intake cycle. So I think, if I may downgrade the vision to, we're looking at kids and adolescents with ADHD, is just get connected, go home, but you will not be in the dark. We will measure your child, and you will see the actual impact, both again on the raw physiology and the overall impact. And we do believe it will. Again, I'm trying to be cautious, but I truly believe it might revolutionize the adherence, the engagement of both patients and the other family stakeholders.
Yeah, no, to me, it's a very clear path. That part of the vision is very clear how it could have this huge effect. Like, you can't change what you're not measuring, is one of the famous sayings from, maybe it's Tony Robbins. I don't know, one of those big motivational speaker guys, and they're very, very big on being able to measure, and obviously, like, being able to measure that health, the impact, both the efficacy and the actual health impact of your child. Like, I can see the vision. To stick with that downgrading real quick, I noticed you mentioned that when a parent is being pushed from physicians, schools, like, oh, they should or shouldn't be on this. Is ADHD just ADD just this urban legend?
In a sense, yeah.
How do you go about that conversation to step outside of the business? And obviously this is a primarily business podcast, but step outside of that when you're having that conversation with people that maybe you come across, hey, I don't think this is real. How do you handle that conversation?
Well, again, we're not medical school or something that we can. I'm not a physician myself. I'm just a father.
Mm-hmm.
So we cannot really completely educate the stakeholders, even though on a weekly basis I'm conducting a call with a worried mother or father who are simply calling me and starting to ask me questions. So again, I know it's not an urban legend. It's lack of dopamine. It's very, very clean. But I don't think the goal of Iluria will be to fully educate the parent, knowing that it's lack of dopamine and the neuroreceptors are open. I mean, it's not relevant for the average parent.
Mm-hmm.
I think we will assist, again, in it's not like a qualitative analysis. It's not a quantitative analysis. It's more of a qualitative analysis, but in a sense, assisting the parents in lowering or dealing with the cognitive dissonance of, I don't really know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And together with that, my cute hyperactive son, for sake of discussion, is now under pharma, and God knows what are the long-term implications, and I cannot really measure what is like the overall impact. I'm out.
Yeah.
So I think we might assist. Again, the average parent will not necessarily object immediately, because again, the physician told him there is a problem. The school, which is also important stakeholders, tells him it's a problem. I mean, the average parent will not ignore it, but down the road, I'm talking about 3 months statistically, they will drop out, because again, I understand there is a problem, but I will not deal with pharma. It's risky. I don't know. So
Okay.
just showing that. Again, obviously, it's a platform. You have, other than what, you have also a phone app, and the parents can see a lot of things and some like educational materials. But again, we are not. I'm not a healthcare provider. We will not educate the parents on what ADHD is. On the personal level, I'm doing that, but
Yeah.
I don't see it as like the main attribute. This is not the claim to fame of Iluria.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that one of the ways that you're handling risk there is being in consultative sales, being able to consult with the parents, with the pharmacist, the doctors, all that are involved. What are some other risks running this business that you've ran into that you think might be coming down the line when you're thinking about problem solving and potential risk? What's coming to mind?
So it's healthcare, and in healthcare everything is slow, and everyone are slow adapters. Definitely physicians. Again, they will be the first ones that will tell you we have problem. We are the first line of defense in a sense, or the ones who are actually talking to the parents, and we are losing them. But then again, adopt a new technology. I'm used to doing things manually and listening to the teacher. I'm okay. So I think that what I'm trying to say, that I think that the major risk is, again, not looking at like a specific case, but assuming there will be some sort of education once we will try and go beyond the lowest hanging fruit. I think we will be able to find the lowest hanging fruit, because again there is a problem. But try to like scale it, start climbing in this hockey stick, will require some, I'm saying it cautiously, some sort of education or like further convincing. And because of that, we do believe that assistance from strategic stakeholders might be important. May they be pharma or I don't know, EHRs or payers. I don't know, but again, I think we need like additional firepower if we really want to push it forward, or simply raise a lot of money. I never addressed that option because, again, you can never tell whether you will be able to raise a lot of money. But assuming we will not raise huge amount of money in a year time, I think that or in a couple of years, I think that finding the right both design partner and actual VARs, in a sense, value-added resellers or strategic partners might be important.
So is that kind of what you have coming up next, as what's on the docket right now? These next 6 months is searching for those right partners.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That answers that question. I am curious. So as you become this great leader that you are, were there any mentors, books, classes, anything at all that you can point to that helped you a ton?
Acceleration programs. Again, I had my share in startups, in multiple, as I mentioned, multiple C-level positions. Having said that, when you are actually at the top of the pyramid and when you are trying to lead an activity, even if it's only a one-man show at the beginning, the acceleration programs were super important and super insightful. We've done like a bunch of them. I think maybe the most important one was Health Wildcatters from Dallas, Texas. Actually, they were also the first investors in Iluria, and that was instrumental. Again, maybe it was trivial, but still, making mentors and the acceleration programs directors themselves all the time pushing you and making you cement or trying to cope with the product market fit issue was crucial, was actually instrumental in our ability to raise funding, like the pre-seed, and then to move along. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the acceleration programs. Other than that, physicians, for example, Professor Epstein from Cincinnati Children's Hospital, he was like a true guide. Again, he's one of the world's leading KOL when it comes to ADHD. But aside from his like willingness to actually cooperate with us, he's also willing to educate us in a sense, even to simplify it for us in the sense of what is the one big problem? Okay, adherence. What would you like to see as a clinician? So again, both specific personas, mostly physicians, and acceleration programs.
It's good to know. Actually, I don't get that answer a lot of acceleration programs. I don't know if I've ever actually gotten an answer for that question. So it's good to know.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Okay. So finally, what have been some of the most critical skills for you and that you believe an entrepreneur needs to be able to succeed?
You have to be focused. Okay, it's maybe some sort of a conflict, but still you have to be focused, but then again you have to be flexible. And being flexible, it means to ask yourself, some tough questions. As I asked myself this morning, I mean, who will buy it? Maybe it's something too specific. Maybe the regulatory clearance is a barrier. Maybe we need to downgrade it and offer some sort of a technical barrier. So both on one hand, the flexibility, on the other hand, to be focused and not to deviate by each and every sound or voice or noise that you hear in the background that will create a defocus. So again, it's you cannot really put a label into it or to it's not like one size fits all. I mean, each and every startup, it's a unique case. But I think the combination between these two opposite elements is the key to success.
There's a saying, I want to make sure I get it right, but it's something along the lines of firm on vision, flexible on detail. So there is a balance there. As I've talked to all these great leaders, such as yourself, there's really is a balance there that you have to be able to find. And I find that asking yourself questions throughout all of these conversations that I've had, asking yourself questions on how can we change, what's possible, what's not possible, and just keeping yourself as creative as possible has been a huge key for so many founders.
Hence flexibility in a sense, or an open mind.
So what is, kind of as a closing question here, what is some advice that you would give somebody that's wanting to start their own company outside of attending accelerators?
Well, I think it's not a generic answer, because I think the answer might be different, or it will change between industries. If you're talking about healthcare, it will take time, and you should have the bandwidth and the resources and the willingness to go through this journey, because the processes are much slower. The skepticism is always much higher. You will need FDA clearance; they will never approve it. Again, even now, I don't have the clearance yet, because again, it's a combination of funding and the actual clearance, but still. So when it comes to healthcare, I think that the typical founder should be aware of the long and winding road that he will face, unless he will raise a lot of money at the get-go. But if I will try and be more generic, both in healthcare, even if you raise a lot of money at the get-go, but definitely in other industries, is again, don't think that, always challenge yourself when it comes to the product market fit. Again, even if you're in the market and someone is actually buying the solution, it still doesn't mean that the product market fit is cemented. But definitely, if it's like a pre-seed, just like an inception of idea that all of a sudden came up, don't be sure that you have the product market fit validated at the get-go. Again, in some cases, if I know you are psychiatrist and you came up with a specific idea, for eating disorders, maybe it will be a bit more clear. But then again, it's not one size fits all. I think always challenging yourself with respect to the product market fit, and not think that you have things done because one or a couple of potential clients said good job and they will never pay for it at the end of the day. I think this is the most crucial element.
It's fantastic advice. I've appreciated this conversation. I'm excited to see where the company heads and be able to catch up again in 6 months time or a year time. And as I'm wishing you good luck in your venture, also stay safe. I know there's a lot going on in your neck of the woods. And again, I really appreciate the time. I'm really looking forward to connect again in the future.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you.